All right, as promised, we're going to go through my go-to routine when I've been sat all day and my back is screaming. Not even my back, all my joints are screaming. So the first things first is I usually end up landing on all fours because my body just doesn't even want to adapt out of this position, right? I'm kind of like I'm seated, but now I'm facing downwards. So I start here with pressing back towards a child's pose. I might not even be ready for a full-on stretch here. So I take it gingerly and then I walk myself forward, tuck my hips into kind of a supported swan. So just flowing back and forth here. I don't want to push myself into end range of motion, like pushing into a super intense stretch because I've been kind of stuck for a long time and I know that my body will react really negatively to being forced. So I want to just take it nice and easy here. Okay. Okay, then after I've done enough of those, I will spin myself into my mermaid, which is my Z sit position. You can do this up on a pillow if that feels better for your hip. And then we just do gently side to side, trying to lengthen through the side body. And also using the breath here, big inhale to expand the ribs. And then an exhale to counter stretch. Another one of those. I'll usually do probably three of these total. And then forward bend over the front knee. Going straight forward may not feel so good. You may want to actually rotate a little bit. Again, we're not forcing anything here, right? Because if you've been stiff for a long time and if you, especially if your body tends to guard, you could have, kind of a tension in your muscles. You don't want to force a stretch here. We're just kind of getting into what feels safe and accessible. And then, of course, we'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll stick to two, but feel free to make this three. Yeah, using that breath. Make sure you use your inhale to expand the rib cage. And then again, taking a forward fold. Okay, so I'm starting to feel a little bit of a waking up, a little bit of a loosening in my hip and back. Okay, so then I'm going to spin my body around. And then now that I'm on my back, I'm just going to do my gentle pelvic tilt, which is just, really your kind of go-to for getting to wake up the back. And I don't want this to be effortful. So you're not like gripping the glutes or anything. You're just really allowing yourself, if you think about the bones moving and a gentle rock into where your belly button is, and then a rock to where your pubic bone or tailbone is, you'll probably want to come back to this a couple times through the routine, but you just want to kind of let everything that's in there just relax, right? They've been so stiff for so long. And then from here, I'll usually go into my book opener. So I'll take my knees to the side. Sometimes you'll hear me call this Bridgerton arms because you're reaching and then pulling up your big fancy glove and then opening up into a T. Now, when I was doing this in my hotel room, I of course did not have room for this. So that's in that case, I'll do it with my hands behind my head and then open my elbows out and then pull back, hands around the head. And again, using the breath, right? So a lot of us hold our breaths in stressful situations. So it's really important to have really intentional breathing after you've been, in a high stakes environment. And then I like to take one hand here and give myself just an extra twist. Now, there's a good chance my back's going to really feel that. So I'm going to pull my knees into my chest as a way of transition, just to keep my back from getting mad about that. And then I'll take my knees to the other side, rolling, using gravity so that it's not a strain. And then use again, inhale, exhale. If you're in a tight space, you can do this with your hands wrapped around your head and just open the elbows, using the breath. And then finally, if you like, putting a hand and just letting yourself really sink into it. I will, especially if I've been seated a long time, I will sit in this position for a good few minutes just to kind of let myself open up. You'll feel it really in the pecs as well as down here in the low back and hips. And for me, like rotation is just it's huge for me in terms of getting mobility back in my low back for whatever reason. Pull the knees in and take yourself on a rock. And I would also take this on a rock forward and back. It doesn't need to be like a perfect Pilates rock. You just want to feel the massage of your spine and the floor and the ease of gravity. Okay, and then finally, now that I'm pretty warm, I might even go back into this to see if I can get a little bit more dynamic, a little more stretch. I'm gonna then lie all the way on my stomach and I'm gonna use my arms to push up. So this is not even really a classic swan because I'm not thinking so much about my back muscles. I'm thinking about using my arms to create space without having to effort in my low back muscles. So think about the fact that you've been seated, and so you've been shortening your hip flexors, been in a flexed hip position like all day. So you want to go gently here and just kind of hold it. I try to give myself a few seconds of relax. You can see my arms shaking, before I try to go all the way up because I want to give myself a chance to settle, even just for a few moments, into that open hip position. And then finally, this is not a Pilates move per se. It's a stretch one of my favorite trainers taught me. Take one knee out to the side, bent, and then reach the same arm back to grab the opposite foot. You may find that this is a little bit of a hamstring activation on this side, but you're also stretching the front of that leg. And then we switch to the other side, leg out, reach up and back. You're also getting a little stretch in your arm. Okay, and then I probably do 5 of these on each side. And then the last thing, so we're kind of getting into the inner thighs here because you're pushing your knee out to the side, but we often don't think about the fact that when you're seated in a chair, especially if you're a woman in like a skirt or you're feeling like you have to be demure, you're like closing and squeezing your knees all day. At least that's how I feel. And, that's not your natural kind of posture. Um, and so you're probably like have a lot of tension in your inner thighs as well from being seated. So there's 2 ways to go about this. You can kind of sit wide in your knees. You see my heels are turned in, and then you can kind of rest your body down. Now that's a lot on the knee, so that might not feel so great. Another option is to take one leg out straight. So you turn the foot down on the floor, and then you again sit backwards, and you'll probably feel a good pull back here. And then do that on both sides. And then, of course, you know, your piriformis can definitely get kind of angry from sitting a lot. So I would do any version of a figure four that feels good to you. So that may be sitting with your ankle across your opposite thigh. You can do this lying on your back. If you're a yoga practitioner, maybe you do a pigeon. You definitely want to get in that. And then hopefully you feel like you've got a little blood flow and a little release after your long day of seating. Um, Give it a try and let me know what you think.